All right, so before we move on to the next chapter, there's a few things that we need to go over so that way you can understand what is being covered in your next chapter, right? Because there's a few things that we're not sure if you have learned them in the past, or if some of you have or some of you forget. So we just need to make sure that we go over this again so that way you're understanding the next chapter. All right, so this isn't a chapter from your book, but it is something that you may have learned in the past, and we're going to be using outside resources for this. All right, so for this first part, if I give you two lines, all right, if I draw two lines, and I tell you that these two lines are parallel, the way that I let you know that two lines are parallel is by drawing these arrows here. If two lines have two arrows going through them, then they are parallel. Or we can also let you know by saying it's a square or a quadrilateral or something like that. But if I give you these two lines and I let you know they're parallel, we can draw a line going through them, right? So our line can go through it like this. We can draw a line going through it like this. It doesn't necessarily need to be just one, It doesn't necessarily need to just be just one line, but we can draw a line going through our two parallel lines in any direction. All right, so here we have two lines going through them. Each of these lines, they are called a transversal. All right, so a line is a line a transversal is a line that intersects two or more lines. All right, so this blue line is a transversal, and so is this green line because they are intersecting two or more lines. All right, now when you have a transversal that intersects two parallel lines or more, it creates relationships, and each of these are angles. I'm going to number these: 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, so we're going to talk about these in detail. I'm going to erase this line because you don't need to have more than one transversal. You can have one. Sometimes there could be more than one, but we're only going to focus on one of them for right now. But a transversal is a line that intersects two or more lines. So this blue line would be a transversal. And when they intersect two parallel lines, they develop these relationships. All right, so we're going to go through all these. You need to know these. These will not be provided on your test. You have to know these, right? You must understand and memorize these relationships. So whatever you do to memorize anything, whether if it's creating note cards, writing it down, whatever it is, you must memorize these. All right, so let's go through our relationships. All right, so here I redrew two parallel lines. So that's the two black lines. We know they're parallel because they have the arrow telling us that they're parallel. And then my red line's my transversal. And when we intersect, we create all these angles: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to go through all of these different theorems or postulates that you need to know. And the first one is going to be corresponding angles postulate. So what it means to be corresponding is it means that the angle is located in the same position. So one of the ways I used to teach this in the past is when you look here, this angle 1 corresponds with this angle 5 because they're both in the same position. When this transversal intersects the two parallel lines, this was both located in the top left of our intersection, top left. And this one, angle 2, is also corresponding to angle 6 because that is top right. And top right, they're in the same position. Here we have angle 3 corresponds with angle 7 because they're the bottom left. They're both in the exact same position of the intersecting. So we're comparing one intersection to the other, and then the remaining angle 4 and angle 8, they're both bottom right. So if it's in the same location when it intersects this parallel line as it is with the other, that means they are corresponding. And corresponding angles are congruent. It means that they're exactly the same. So that means all of these angles, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. And angle 8 is congruent to angle 4. So all of our corresponding angles are always congruent. All right? So you have to know that. And what is a corresponding angle? They're located in the same position from our transversal when it intersects our parallel lines. So I always just have them write out top left, top right, and that way it helped them understand which one was congruent to each other. All right? But corresponding angles, they are congruent. All right, then the next ones, you see it says alternate interior angles alternate exterior angles and consecutive interior angles, or you'll also see them called same side interior angles. So you need to know the difference between alternate and consecutive or same side, all right? And when we talk about alternate, we're talking about opposite sides of the transversal. So when they're alternate, that means we need to be on opposite sides of this transversal. So one needs to be on the right-hand side while the other needs to be on the left. So this alternate, I'm going to highlight them in yellow, alternate, alternate, same side, or consecutive. That is talking about where we're located on our transversal. So I'll put that in yellow highlighted here, so transversal. Because when you see alternate or same side or consecutive, that means we're comparing it to the transversal. All right, then the next thing that you see where it says interior or exterior angles, that is talking about whether or not you're inside your two parallel lines or outside. So if you're between them or on the outside. So here is exterior because we're on the outside. If we were to imagine make a sandwich out of our parallel lines, the interior angles will be what would be part of our sandwich, and the exterior angles would be what is on the outside. So when we look and we see this interior angles, exterior and interior, we are comparing where we're located with our parallel lines. So you need to know the difference between them. All right, so here it says alternate interior angles. Well, alternate interior angles, that means they need to be on opposite sides of our transversal, and we're always comparing one parallel line to the other. We're never comparing within the same parallel line. We wouldn't say 3 and 4 are alternate interior angles because they're part of the same intersection. We're always comparing one of our parallel lines to our other, one of our parallel angles to our other. So in this case, our alternate interior angles, we would have 4 and 5 are on opposite sides of our transversal, and they're both inside of our parallel lines. Here we have 3 and 6. They are on opposite sides of our transversals, and they are both inside or the interior of our parallel lines. So our alternate interior angles, they are congruent. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 6, and angle 5 is congruent to angle 4. So alternate interior angles, just like our corresponding angles, they are congruent. And remember, we're always comparing one intersection of one of the parallel lines to the other. So 3 and 4 are not alternate interior angles because they are part of the same intersection. All right, now the next one says alternate exterior angles. So since it's exterior, we know that we're comparing outside. So that means we're not going to be comparing 3, 4, 5, or 6 because they're interior. And since they're alternate, they need to be on the opposite side. So that means 1 and 8 are alternate interior angles, and 2 and 7 are alternate exterior angles. And just like the other ones, they are congruent. So alternate exterior angles, they are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 8, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 7. So the first 3 things that we learned about, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, and alternate exterior angles, they're all congruent to each other. So they are always equal. And we use that to solve problems. The only one that's different is the consecutive interior angles or same-sided. We're going to go through that now. All right, so now the last one, you're going to hear me say same side more than consecutive, but consecutive or same side interior angles. That means we're focusing on the interior. So 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 are not going to be talked about because they're not interior angles but exterior. And consecutive or same side means that they're located on the exact same side of the transversal, or they're consecutively next to each other on the same side of the transversal. So 3 and 5, they're consecutive or same side interior angles, and 4 and 6 are same side or consecutive interior angles. Now they are supplementary. What that means is they will add up to 180 degrees. So the measurement of angle 3 plus the measurement of angle 5 is equal to 180 degrees. And the measurement of angle 4 plus the measurement of angle 6 is equal to 180 degrees. Right? So of these rules, 3 of them are exactly the same. They're corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior. They're all congruent. They're just equal. The only one that's different, and if you think all of these, but they're all equal. And then same side interior, they're the ones that are always going to be supplementary. So you have to memorize these. All right, let's go through a couple examples. All right, so here it says find the value of x. So we want to find the value of x. Well, the only angle we know here is this 115 degrees. We don't know anything else yet. However, since I just made the video about vertical angles, we know that angle 4 is also equal to, the measure of angle 4 is also equal to 115 degrees because they are vertical angles. And now when we look here, we have a relationship. Angle 4 and this x plus 5, they are same side interior angles or consecutive interior angles. So that means the measurement of angle 4 plus x plus 5 degrees, so the other angle, is equal to 180 degrees. Now we can substitute. We know that the measure of angle 4 is 115. So 115 plus x plus 5 is equal to 180 degrees. So x plus 120 is equal to 180. We subtract 120 from each side. That means that x is equal to 60 degrees. All right, so we're finding the value of x. We used our rules that we just learned before to go ahead and say these must be supplementary. We used the rule that we learned before that these are vertical, so we know that they are equal, and we can go ahead and solve. All right, the last one, it says if measurement of angle 1 is equal to 105 degrees, find the measurement of angle 4, 5, and 8, and tell each postulate or theorem you use in each case. So for 1, we know that 1 and 4 are consecutive angles. So that means the measurement of angle 1 is equal to the measurement of angle 4. So since we know 1 is 105 degrees, that means the measurement of angle 4 is also 105 degrees. And we use their vertical angles theorem. That's what we learned in our last video. All right, so now for here, measurement of angle 5, well, measurement of angle 5, we can use multiple ways. Angle 1 and angle 5 are consecutive angles because they're both in the same location. You would say top left. Angle 4 and angle 5 are alternate interior angles. So we can use different ways to solve for this. So we can go ahead and say that the measurement of angle 1 is also equal to the measurement of angle 5. Or we could say the measurement of angle 4 is equal to the measurement of angle 5. And either way, it's 105 degrees is equal to the measurement of angle 5. Make sure you're putting your degree symbol. If you don't, you will lose points because it's your units. All right, so our rules that we can say for this, we can say that they are corresponding angles postulate or alternate interior angles theorem. Either way, that is acceptable. All right, and then for the measurement of angle 8, well, 8 and 1 are the same because they are alternate exterior. 8 and 5 are the same because they're vertical, and 8 and 4 are the same because they are corresponding. So whichever one you want to use, you can. But I'm going to go ahead and say the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 8. So 105 degrees is equal to the measure of angle 8. And our reasoning for this is alternate exterior angles theorem. And like I said, you could actually use any of them. You could have used vertical angles, you could have used corresponding, or like I used alternate exterior angles. It's your call. All right, we're just going to go through number 2, and then that's it for this video. All right, so this one says if measure of angle 3 is 68 degrees and measure of angle 8 is 2x plus 4 degrees, what is the value of x? Well, here we don't have a rule for the same side exterior angles. But what we do know is angle 3 and angle 2 are congruent, and we know that angle 8 and angle 5 are congruent because they're vertical angles. And then angle 2 and angle 5 are same side or consecutive interior angles. So we can go ahead and say that the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 5 is equal to 180 degrees. We know that the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 3 because they are vertical angles. And we know that the measure of angle 8 is equal to the measure of angle 5 because they are also vertical angles. So we can substitute in. So for the measure of angle 2, we can substitute in the measure of angle 3, so that's 68 degrees. We can substitute in the measure of angle 8 for the measure of angle 5, so that's 2x plus 4 degrees, and we know it's equal to 180. We can then go ahead and solve. 2x plus 72 is equal to 180. We can subtract over 72. So then 2x is then equal to 108, and then we would divide each side by 2. So x is then equal to 54 degrees. All right, it doesn't ask you to solve for the measure of angle 8. It simply just says what is the value of x. All right, make sure you show your steps to get full credit on your test. Right, that is it for this video.